Okay, so in this case, I got this little application. This application is about React GraphQL. Okay, it's a React GraphQL client using Apollo. Okay, let's go there. Let's go there. I think this one is for. Let's go to client. React and React Native. Oh, it was that one. Just started. Okay, so let me show you first how this little application works. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, so there are two routes in this application. The first one is all posts, that is getting all the posts I have on a GraphQL server. Okay, and the second route is to find a post using an ID. Okay, so this is post 4, this is post 2. Okay, so let me go to, because there are two parts into this project. First one is the node GraphQL server, and this one is using Mongo. I have this. Okay, I have this project. I have a code review of this project in the channel. Also, it has its repository in GitHub, so you can take a look at that. Okay, so this is the first part. You need to have a GraphQL server. This one using Apollo Server Express because it's not. And let's go to package.json so you can see the dependencies. Using GraphQL Express, I'm using course, body parser, and Apollo Server Express. Okay, and let's go back to Apollo. Let's say open a new tab. Let's wait for it to load. Okay, server. If you haven't used Apollo server, okay, as I said, I have a little code review where I show you how everything is structured using Node and Express and MongoDB. Okay, so let's make a little recap on that. So this is the Node API that is serving posts that are inside Mongo. Okay, let me show you the database. The connection is inside this MongoDB in mlab. Okay, this is the connection, and I'm connecting to the database. You'll see more in the code review that I have in the channel, so you can take a deeper look into that later. These are the queries. Okay, so let me check. Okay, let me copy this, let me close that one, and let me go to GraphQL. No, it's not 3000. I changed that. It's 8000. So here you can see this route is using the GraphQL. So let's open the docs. I have a query, two queries. This one is posts. I think it's like this. I haven't used GraphQL in a while. Okay, so using posts, and let me click here. It returns a post. Not much to see there, so let's go to let's close this one, and okay, let's go to the schema, and these are the queries. Okay, first you define the model, what you want to return, okay, and then you type or define your queries using type query. In this case, I'm using post, and I'm saying return posts. Okay, and if I type post with an ID, I return a post. Okay, here are some mutations that allow us to make some changes. Okay, to create posts, update posts, and delete posts. So, okay, let's go back here. In this case, if I say mutation, and I think it was like that, mutation post, or it was outside. Let's, okay, it was outside. Mutation post using the ID as a string. Let me get an ID. Let's see if this works. Okay, let's run that. Cannot query field post on type mutation. Isn't this with a string? Let's ever respect the name. So let's say name. Nope. Error. So this then should be like this. Let's remove this. Let's see if it works like that. Okay, let's go back to, when you say I need a string. Okay, let's go to GraphQL mutations. Instead of trying to figure it out by myself, I had to pass everything. GraphQL mutations, query mutations. So it should be here. So is it post? Okay, I'm passing an ID. Okay, I need to do this. It seems. Okay. Okay. My bad. But it should work with mutation, no? With the word mutation. But I don't know. So in this case, it works like this. No, because I think it's ready. Okay. So you see, I type a post and a query named post. Okay, I pass a string. It needs to be a string, and it returns a post. But it should return a post. Okay, so this is what I'm getting. You can see it's the same ID. So after that, let's go back to this schema. This is the schema. Okay, here are the queries, the resolvers. So okay, that's it. And you can see more on the channel about this node GraphQL MongoDB server or API. I explain in detail how this thing works. So okay, Let me take out something. I'm just answering a message and okay. So as you can see, I have 8,000. Okay, I'm listening on 8,000 for 8,000. So let's change this one. Okay. So in this case, this is the server. Just restart it. So that's the first part, the server. Now let's go to what this video is supposed to be about. The GraphQL client with React. As I said, we need to have a GraphQL endpoint that we had. Okay, and so what do we need to do now? You will need to run npm install apollo boost, react apollo, and GraphQL. Okay, let's go to package.json. Okay, so you can see here the dependencies, and let's start. Let's start with what we have on hand, the app.js. No, let's start with the index, because for you to see how everything is structured, I have the browser router, since I'm using React router. Okay, we need to surround your application inside browser router. You can use the routes. Let's go to routes. Okay, I'm importing these two components. That one is using well, is called GraphQL Client, and the other one is GraphQL Client variable. Okay, and I'm just adding the paths here. So let's go back to React. You can see I have the variable here. Okay, and if I go to all posts, I'm just getting the root. So okay, let's keep moving. This is just a navigation. Okay, remember you need to use link. Okay, let's close that. And let's go back to app.js. Okay, I close. Okay, let me close index.js. So what we need to import Apollo client. Okay, I mean to import Apollo client from Apollo Boost. These are the routes and the navigation. To import Apollo provider from React Apollo. Apollo provider lets us use the endpoint we are going to set using Apollo client. Okay, in this case it's a constant. Okay, constant Apollo client equals to new Apollo client instance using the URI, and this one is the endpoint of our application. Instead of GraphQL is GraphQL. Okay, if you remember, here we add our endpoint URL that is in HTTP localhost. Okay, and it appends at the end GraphQL. So this is what we are using here, localhost 8000, and remember this is just the interface we use to test our queries. I think we can go to HTTP. We should get all the posts. Localhost 8000 and GraphQL. For missing, I think I need to pass something. Oh, I know. This is a little odd. How to pass that argument? It should be here. Okay, I showed you before how to pass these arguments, to get the query here. I can't remember how it was, and I'm not going to look for it now, but in the GraphQL Server Mongo API, I show you how to call it this way. You need to pass a query. Well, I can remember how it was structured. So let's move on. Let's close this one and let's continue with what we have. Okay, so we set our endpoint, we define that, and it's now the Apollo client. Okay, our component, our Apple component, okay, is going to return an Apollo provider. That is the element we need to pass. Okay, we need to pass the client that right now is Apollo client. Okay, that is sets the URI for of GraphQL endpoint, and here we pass what we usually pass. Here we have our routes. Remember, we are using React router. Okay, we're importing our routes from routes. Okay, here are the components, and that's the first thing you need to do. Surround your application or what you're going to return in this Apollo provider. This one is a class-based component. Okay, so you can use also functional, but I will show you later how to use the functional using the query. That is a special element that returns in your query, the query you made to the GraphQL server, okay, with all the information. So okay, this one is the first part. We can close routes. We're going to keep this one open. Okay, I think, no, I don't think we're going. Okay, let's keep that. Let's keep going. So let's go with the first component, that is GraphQL Client. Okay, let's go back to get started with Apollo Client, GraphQL. Okay, so you can use this. You can get, you need to import the GQL from GraphQL tag to make queries, to make this little string query. Okay. So in this case, let's copy this one and let's try to make it work. So let's open the console. I'm not consoling out anything. Okay, these are just some warnings, compare the file that we use, and things like that. Where is this? Oh, I know, because this one is a functional component. I don't need this thing. Okay, let's remove that one. Okay, let's refresh in order to see the changes here in the console, but you shouldn't need to refresh. Okay, you see, you saw that it appeared a little, it's pretty fast, a little message that posts are being retrieved or something like that. I can't remember what I said, what I typed there, but okay, I will show you how it's returned, how that gets returned. So we have this one on the clipboard. Let's go here, and I think I can set it right here. No, it's not here. Okay, this one is going to be here, not inside the component but outside. So remember that we need this client, okay, and in this case is for Apollo client. So let's go to Apollo client that query. Okay, this is a method that will allow us to query, and let's say posts. Let's see what it returns. I think I need to pass this curly braces. GQL not defined. Okay, I need to import because I'm not using this. Oh no, you should. No, I'm not using this GQL here. I'm using it here, and here I do have imported. Okay, so let's copy this one. Let's copy this line. Let's set it here. Shouldn't be a problem for it to be here. Okay. I need to change this. Let's place it here. Syntax error. Expected name is telling me that it needs something passed inside these curly braces. I think it was name. So let's refresh. Okay, I'm getting this. Okay, here we have our posts. This is a simple way of getting your queries. Okay, just using your client with query. Okay, that will allow you to query. You need to specify query and the GQL, and this is the same as let me remove this posts. Let's say name. This is the same as this. You need to match what your GraphQL API is expecting. Okay, so you can see this is post 2, post 1, post 3, post 4, and I'm getting 2, 1, 3, 4, 12, and new post for code review, and new post for code review. Okay, so this is a simple way of getting your queries, but we are not going to use that. So let me remove this Apollo client query. Let me save this and also remove the GraphQL tags since we are not going to use it here. Okay, let's refresh in case. Okay. So everything is found there. Let's check that we are still getting our IDs. We're going to take a look at this in a minute. So let's keep going with the first route that is managing all the posts. Okay, so let's take a look at how we return all that using the query. Okay, so let's go to, I think it should be, yes. Okay, this is the element that is going to allow us to manage or to return our queries. Okay, so let's go back to our code and take a look at that. Okay, this one we are done with this. Okay, this is the main component. Remember, we need to pass Apollo provider and the URI. that is in this case the subject. Okay? So that's it for this component. Let's close it. So returning to this one, this is the GraphQL client. It's the first one. Okay, you can see we are getting all the posts. So how we are getting all the information? Remember that we need to get or to pass this query element. Okay, so we import first the GQL that allows us to make the queries. Okay, and query from React Apollo. We define this query that is in this case get posts. Okay, we say GraphQL and we ask for the, in this case, the posts matching. Remember, matching what our GraphQL is expecting. Okay, is ID, and the other one was description. Okay, so this is the same as this. Okay, so remember that this one is a functional component. Okay, so we are not going to pass anything here. We don't need to pass anything here, okay, for this query to work, because we are just getting the information. Okay, all the information, so we don't need to filter anything here. So we specify this query element, we pass this method that is going to get, it's going to have a loading, an error, and a data argument. Okay, we manage here, you can even call, you know, those little spinners if you want, but in this case, if it's loading, if GraphQL is fetching the posts and is loading, return posts are being retrieved. Wait, let me see if you can see that is a little, okay, maybe, oh, let's keep it like that. Okay, so when it's loading, when it's first fetching all the information, it's going to show you a little message. You can add a little spinner, a component, return a, I don't know, component, a spinner component, you know, and you can pass components here. Okay, if there's an error with GraphQL not expecting something that you passed, or another kind of error with GraphQL, okay, it's going to return this message, an error and the error message. Okay, and now you can return. Remember that if we set this parenthesis, okay, what we mean is render what I'm going to return. Don't wait for anything else, just render. Okay, so in this case we're going to return a div with the class name post container, just a title. You can see here all posts, and the data is what is getting. Okay, if I go back to app.js, let me copy this so I can show you what is going to return and why is that data there. Okay, let's import this one. Let me copy again. This query. And let's add it here. What is this? So this one is abvle client. Okay. Cool. Okay. Response not successful. Follow our request. Oh. Okay. So that's the error you get. So let's change. GraphQL error. Message cannot query field raised on type query. Okay, that is, we don't have defined anything with rates. Okay, it's trying to look for this, but we don't have anything. Or query is posts, we don't pass anything here. Well, we do need to pass something here. Name should come back. Yes. Okay, so this data, okay, is the one that has all the information. So go to the GraphQl client. This data is that object. So we can loop, this is an array, we can loop through that, through those posts. Okay, it's an array of 6 elements in this case, and we can map to that array. For each post, we are going to return a class name div called post. We need to pass the key because we are getting an array object, and we pass the post name and post description. Okay, these ones, remember that you can see them here. You should be able to see them here. Okay, no, because I'm just returning the name. Okay, so these ones are what you are what GraphQL has set on the model. Okay, so let's go to the GraphQL. That's why I have it up. I have it up in still. Okay, this is Mongoose. Okay, you need to match this. In this case, strings. Okay, in your code. So let's go back here. Okay, so this one is the first GraphQL client that is returning, or component, I mean, that is returning all your posts or all the posts inside the GraphQL server. Okay, so we can move. Yeah, we can move on. So let's close this one. We can. I'm going to keep that in case I need to show anything else. So this is the funny part. Remember that, let me close this. remember that we have another route that find post using the ID. Okay, select post by ID. In this case, we have this nothing to show, select an ID from list. Okay, and we have this select an option that is by default selected, and we can select what we want here, but we cannot select this one anymore. Okay, let's go with the last one. Okay, so how that works, remember we need to import GraphQL, GQL from GraphQL tag to be able to make these calls. Okay, and query is the not verbose way to return your information, okay, and to post it and to render it into your component, okay, from React Apollo. We import query from React Apollo. Okay, we need to import, in this case I forgot about this, we're importing another component that is post. Let's go to post, that is making another request. Okay, but you can see that it gets a little complicated when you, but it's not that complicated, but you will need to make some calls and things like that on your components, and this one is not using Redux, so maybe you could use Redux to make your, to keep all your GraphQL inside one file. Okay, in this case I'm making the calls inside each component that needs to make that call. Okay, so in this case let's keep in mind that we're importing this post component. Okay, so we need to get the IDs. Remember that when we say posts, we can return something. Okay, this post call is the same as just saying this. Okay, it's literally the same, and you can see that I'm getting the IDs. Okay, after this we are going to structure the form. Okay, this input, this select. So let's go back to the code. I know some of these videos are just too lengthy, but I'm trying to explain in detail what everything is doing. Okay, so bear with me. First of all, I'm saying the state with an ID of nothing, and we need this disabled false, not because GraphQL needs it, but because we need to render, okay, this select an option. Okay, because if we don't do it, GraphQL is going to make the call automatically. So you will get at the first, in this case I'm showing this, okay, but you will get an error. GraphQL is not, cannot find that element because you're not passing an ID. Okay, so we need that disabled. Okay, in this case is false. So this is a change handler that is going to manage the change inside, if I'm not mistaken, inside the select. It should be inside the select. So in this case I'm nesting the query inside a React fragment. Okay, and because I'm passing this post state, and this post, that is the element we have here. Okay, so you can only pass an element, and since I don't want it, or it should not be inside this query. I just added an extra element, that is this React fragment, okay, to keep everything inside it. So remember, we need to pass this query element. We pass the query. Okay, I think I didn't explain that. You pass the query here, that is this get posts. That is this. This is the actual query that GraphQL is going to make. Okay, so that's it. So you pass this query that is, in this case, is just getting this ID. For all the posts, it's getting the ID. So, okay. The same, you're passing loading, error, and data. Loading is when the first fetch goes, so loading IDs, you will get this message. And error, if something is wrong with the GraphQL code, you will get an error, and you can return that. You can pass here elements, so you will see how to deal with that in a more elegant way. So I'm just passing just the strings and things like that. So we are returning a div. Yeah, in this case we're returning just a div. Okay, this is what I wanted to say. This one is a class-based component because we need this state. We actually need this state for our component. So in this case, I'm actually rendering and returning a React fragment. Okay, and here I return again this div that is the form select post by ID. Okay, and I'm managing this select with the name post, and on change is going to get the current element that is selected. So this is the first option, select an option, and by default is checked. Okay, so it has this disabled. You know that there's an HTML attribute that is disabled. Okay, and in this case I'm saying disable is going to be this data state that disabled. Okay, that at first is false, the value is false. Okay, so that's why we are getting this option that is selected, and we can actually select it. Well, it's selected. Okay, but when we change the checked element, we can no longer select this option. Okay, so here, remember, we are going to receive a data, that is this data, and we are going to map to the post arrays, to the posts array that is getting all the IDs. So this is my GraphQL, okay, that is getting all the IDs, and we just add an option, okay, with that ID. So these are the elements, the options that we are adding via that mapping. Okay, so I have this post. When I first make when I refresh, okay, you see that we are not showing anything here. Okay, remember that this one is still false, the disable is still false, so it's still enabled. Okay, so let's take a look at this post component that we are importing here, and this is the last part of this application. So let's take a look at that, because I still need to make some calls with GQL and with query. Okay, I need to import those, and we need to make the query. So this is yeah, it's almost the same. In this case, I'm going to structure it this way, saying query the model, okay, and calling this ID. This ID is going to be a send, okay. No, sorry, this is not it. I need to pass this. Okay, let me go back to, because requesting data, connect your client. No, there's nothing here. Follow link. Maybe go to queries. Then it should be in queries. Variables. Okay. This is it. This is the one. If we try to load the query result and a part of cache. Oh, this is just one with the cache then. Okay. So we need to specify this this parameter. Okay. We actually need this query with the name of your model and to specify this. Okay, in this case this breed is going to be a string, okay, and this breed is coming from here. We are just setting this to be a string. We expect it to be a string, so in this case it's the same. I'm using post, okay, the model, and this ID, it should be a string. Okay, this ID is the same as this one, but it's just setting the prop type, okay, in a way. So inside this query we actually make our Apollo server query. Remember, we have a post. Let's go back to, okay, it's this query. We have this post that is going to get an ID that it should be a string. Remember, you need to match this to this, okay, because Apollo is expecting this value, okay, this parameter to be this type, and it's going to return a post. So here we make the query. So ID is going to be this ID variable, and as you said, we're going to return the ID, the name, and the description. Okay, so remember to pass the props as arguments. You can use, because you will see how is passed here, okay, because you know you're getting something with this name. You can use data, I can't remember the name of that, and you can destructure the object and get actually what you want, okay, instead of saying, like I'm saying props and I know I'm getting ID. Okay, in this case I'm receiving props, okay, but where the hell we're getting these props? Okay, let's go back to the parent component and remember that we are saying this component post, and we are passing this ID. to be this that state ID. But what is this? Okay, this is the okay, what is that? As I'm explaining, I'm losing track of what is going on. It should be the IDs. This is the state ID. I'm mapping. I'm getting the post ID and this. Okay, yeah. It's going to get its ID. Okay, because we're passing it from a state. Remember that now a state has an ID. Okay, now it has a value when we are down here. Okay, so we are passing this ID to the post. We are going to return a post using that ID. Okay, so from there, this is the property we are passing. So we need to say give me props, and from those props the ID, okay, that is this one, and if props.id is an empty string, but remember that first the state is set to an empty string. Then I'm going to return a paragraph with class name nothing to show, select an ID from the list. That is this thing, nothing to show, select an ID from the list. Okay. Else, if props.id has something, has a value, has an ID, we're going to return. We need to pass this query because remember we need to pass our GraphQL query to our query element. So we are querying, or we are passing get post with these variables, that this is what we are going to pass. Remember that now here this post, this ID is going to be an ID. Okay, it's going to have an ID from one of those options. Because yeah, this is it. Sorry if you didn't catch that. I forgot to mention the change handler. Okay, so what is going to happen here? Let's step back a little bit so you can understand a little bit better how this ID is going to work. Okay, right now we're rendering this option that is passing, that is getting the IDs, okay, with a key and a value. So when we click, that's why we are setting this on change on the select, because it's going to get the option that is selected. This that change handler is going to manage the target value. Remember that when we click, select is going to pass us this option that we are currently selecting with this value. And what is this value? The post ID. Okay, so we're going to say this that set state, okay, of this ID that is currently null or in an empty string, the element that was selected, okay, the option that was selected value, and set this disable to true, that is currently false. So what is going to happen next? This post is going to be rendered now that it has an ID. Okay, but remember that this post component is saying if props ID is equal to an empty string, I'm just going to return this. Okay, that's why I'm passing these curly braces, because I need to say if this ID is an empty string, I need to pass this paragraph. Else I need to return and render what I have here. Okay, so this ID is coming from the onChange and the change handler that is getting the current ID from the element selected and the current value, I mean from the option selected. Okay, this, and since disable is now true, I cannot access this select an option. Okay, so let's keep moving. So we clear this one. Okay, and let's return to the last part of this application. I'm not passing mutations here or things like that, since there are not that complicated, but they need a little more of work on my end. So I'll take a look later. We can add mutations. Where are the mutations? Yes. So a sneak peek of what we're going to do later. Okay. So you will see how this works. But it looks nice. So I need to build this thing into this same application, but you will see later, maybe into another one, I don't know. So let's finish this application. So remember, we're going to return query if we have an ID. Okay, so we get the post. We need to actually make another GraphQL query, but this time using this ID. Okay, that is going to give us this I mean, passing this ID as an parameter, and the value is going to be this ID. Okay, so as I said, with these variables we pass this ID, that this value, I mean this ID is this variable. Okay, so we're assigning props ID to this ID, that is this one. Okay, so that completes our post query, and we pass also our loading error and data. Remember, the data returns what we want, the information we want. In this case, it's going to return just one element. Okay, and then we're going to pass this div. We're going to render or return this div class name post with an h3 that says data post name. Okay, and the data post description that is coming from this. Give it all. Let me. I think I can make the console so you can see. Look, okay, so you can see how everything how it's returning the information. Okay, it's going to return this post, a single post. Okay, and you access that post from the data, and is your information. Okay, that's why I'm just getting data post a name. If I say data post, it's going to return just the object, okay, with an ID, name, description, what we set inside our query, and we just render it. Okay, so that's how you use GraphQL to return. We are just returning the information we have in this GraphQL, okay, not server. So I know it's a little lengthy, it's like 1 hour of video, but I try to explain as much as I can with this little application so you can understand how they work. Okay, so that's it. Later we're going to check out the mutations. Okay, I have that pending to build. So yes, I'll see how I'll work with that later. But okay, that's it. Yes, I have nothing else to say. Remember, you need a GraphQL server. In this case, we built, well, we didn't build it. I built it and I show you how it was structured. We need that GraphQL endpoint to be able to connect to that. Also, one little thing that I need to add. If you don't, okay, let me go back here. If you don't have cores, you will need, okay, you will get an error. You need to install cores, okay, require cores, and say, okay, app or server use cores, just like that, and you will get no cores warnings on your GraphQL client. Okay, so that's it. See you in the next video.